In this development video, we're going to cover what we do here at MangaPage after we finish working on the basic concept of the video game. We moved right into the story on this one because we really wanted to establish our characters, our location, and our point in the PreVa history that we're at. Basically, I wrote a backstory part that covered basically what happens before the game, before the story even takes place, so it gives us a good mindset to start with the story. And we've already wrote half the story already, which covers, as we said in one of our previous videos, that it's basically a retelling of the original PreVa, so it's kind of what's going on with the Commander's team. The second half I have not finished yet, but I got enough with the first that I can go ahead and start concept art and development, and that is kind of complicated if you don't have a good background to go with. And I put a picture up of a series of pictures. It's different stages of working on the concept of one of the pilot characters up in the forum, if anyone wants to check it out. But it basically is something I was only able to develop after I had an idea what the characters needed on them and stuff like that, that you only get from writing a bit of the story. So I can now go into a whole lot more concept stuff from having a well-realized, universe for the PreVa EX world and all that.
Yeah.
And,
And this time in PreVa EX, we're actually looking for our story to be a big part in it. The original PreVa didn't really have that much of a big point on it. The story was kind of thrown together, and this time around we actually really want to have a heavily story-based game that's not just thrown together and not just looks like a little tech demo that became a full game. We're actually trying to get a full involving story and try to move toward anime-esque stuff because
it also has to be strong enough to carry two other games. There will probably be DLCs to come out for the game, so it's technically chapter 1 and 2 more chapters coming after it. And each chapter we're planning on having you play as one side and the other side in each chapter. Kind of independent stories, but tied together at the same time.
Right. So technically with this one, you could almost say it's kind of episodic content stuff. It's, as he said, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and each one will have 2 parts.
So we're really establishing a strong narrative this time around.
Right.
And concept art is something, like I was saying, that once you kind of have this good background, you can start using to really develop a style so your whole game looks, like it belongs in the same universe. Because that's why we kind of wrote a whole major backstory before we even got into the original story, so it gives us an idea of how the technology has come along to the point that it is. That really helps in the design of, at what point in history do they still have, weapons from this point in history, like a previous point in history, like there's still going to be tanks, there's still helicopters, even though it's supposedly the future, everything kind of bleeds over. I mean, there's a lot of military stuff that's using, military technology from, 10, 20 years ago.
Right, and from that, he uses these kind of concepts. I say he because he's most of the art department.
Yeah. He has a degree on everything.
Actually, really.
I'm the art department, but I have to make everything go past him, and he'll look at an idea and go, "This is great. This is stupid."
Exactly. So. But that leads into the concept art. The concept art really has a big deal for the game, especially for him. He has to do a lot of the
designing. Helps set the mood of how the game kind of looks through cutscenes and designs of weapons, which ones you're choosing, not choosing, because it really has a lot to do with the overall mindset of the characters in the universe you're creating.
Right, and in concept, whenever you move into that stage, whenever we moved into that stage, we have to develop some sort of science and some sort of I guess that's the best way to put it, is science and technology for the game, because it goes
into the whole design process.
Right, and concept art is important to that because that's what we use for the actual designs later on for the models and things like that. But the concept art really
gets the juices flowing on the creative end of things.
Using the science and technology, we can say, well, this is what this part does, and this part, and this part, and that's where we start. That is early on, very, very early on.
It's because games, like movies, is a visual medium, so it's very important to get an idea of what it's going to look like before you even come close to producing anything that you can really look at. Which, on the subject of producing things you can look at, we started messing around with Torque, using a lot of the base stuff that Torque had.
Right, basic stuff.
And we threw together something nice and quick to test some scale and a little bit of gameplay for PreVa EX. And to be honest, we would like to have shown it off, but you know,
you have no idea. We were tempted.
Sorely tempted.
But the problem is, to go in depth on that, the Torque test is what it was we were testing scale. We were testing
pre-alpha stuff.
Right. It is very early, so it's the kind of alpha stuff, as in the thing just got called PreVa EX Alpha.
But it has none of our own original art, none of our own design.
Exactly. It
was just two models, a human one and a robot one that we made the size of a VA. And shot at each other.
Right, and we really used it for...
And giggled like schoolgirls.
We used it for two reasons. One, to test our scale, to test our concepts of motions, and checking to make sure that everything in perspective of VA and the perspective of a human would work out about right, and making sure that, you know, things look good, because a lot of games have those problems. And number two... Well, why the heck, you know, why not just play an early thing of PreVa? We wanted to see something, we wanted to test our ideas, but we really wanted to play some multiplayer stuff. And on the subject of Torque, they have moved up, so now we actually are going to be able to move somewhere in the
They released their 1.1 update, which we were kind of waiting on before we got too deep into development, before we moved to the engine side of things, because they need to work a few bugs out that it looks like they have done, which means we can go ahead and start some serious work on the alpha, which at this stage, since we've already got story and a little concept art down, we've already chose what weapons are going to be in the early alpha. Like I said, I have the pilot design in the forum. He might be a little more modified in the game world, because it's a 2D image, and you know, 2D, 3D can cause some issues. You have to do some changing here and there, but that's most likely what you're going to see, which we're going to try our bestest to try to get something out before the end of the year. At least a human being running around and shooting another human being that's also running around. If we can go farther than that, we will, because like I said, we've already got weapons picked out, so I'm going to start modeling them and designing them to go along with our pilot character. And if we can, possibly, I'd like to have a VA functioning, but as game development goes, it's very unpredictable about what you might run into, what kind of bugs you might have. So we're aiming for it. Whether it happens or not, you know, we'll keep you up to date. At
the earliest being probably fall.
Yeah, but more realistically, end of the year.
We're aiming toward the end of the year. But know this: as soon as we get art, some early art, some early code, and things like that for what we want for the stuff, as soon as we actually can have a full playable thing that actually looks kind of like what we want, then we can put it out. So
and you'll get to play it as we're playing it, basically.
Right, and we have quick prototyping ability, and as we've mentioned before, the game is going to be up on our site for people to play. You guys will be able to play it just real easily. And
so as soon as I have a model, you'll see it. As soon as he has, you know, a player running around, he'll throw up a quick video of it just to show off animations so far and things like that.
And we should be able to quickly edit that stuff, like on the fly. Torque's actually pretty good at its prototyping abilities, and that's actually one of the things that has been said about. That's one of the things that attract us to it. It's very easy to change our stuff, and we don't really have to do a bunch of compiling and all these other things. So whenever we actually do get into that area, you guys will be able to get it like
you'll see it as soon as it's done. Right now I'm fixing to start modeling with Blender, if it works out. It'll be the program that will most likely be used for all the modeling in the game, and animating and skinning and so on. So we're learning new tools for this, because we've gone completely to a whole new engine using Torque. So as we're learning it, we can produce more. So, you know, it's going to be a ride for both of us to be on.
Right, because even though with 3D Game Studio we made 2 games, and that was our intro into development. We moved up, and I'd say we've learned a lot, and thanks to 3D Game Studio for that. Well, we're now moving into, as he said, a new engine, so it's
got a learning curve.
While we understand how to make the video games, and we know how we're going to end up doing a lot of the things, we have to learn a new tool set.
There will be lots of trial and error and what ways might work better.
Right.
So on. Well, we'll get to that when we have our alpha functioning. So, till we have something else to share with you, we'll see you next time.